Okay. If I could have everyone take their seats. Okay. Welcome to the 2024 Annual Conference and Book Fair in Kansas City, Missouri. Yay. I am Regina Brooks, a member of the AWP Board of Directors. Here's a visual description of me. I am African American, I have brown skin, I am wearing a black jacket and a dress that has red and green flowers. The Association of Writers and Writing Programs is a small but mighty nonprofit organization that amplifies the voices of writers and academic programs and organizations that serve them, all while championing diversity and excellence in creative writing. I'm a member of the Board of Directors, but first and foremost, I am a member of AWP. Membership with AWP provides me with writing resources year-round, but just as importantly, it allows me to support other writers, especially those who are just starting out. My membership dues help writers find meaningful careers and publication opportunities and make services like the Writer-to-Writer Mentorship Program and the AWP HBCU Fellowship Program possible. If you aren't already, I invite you to become a member today. We are delighted to bring you this event today. I'd like to acknowledge and thank all of our conference sponsors and the literary partner hosting this event today is Furious Flower Poetry Center. Yes. Literary partners and sponsors allow AWP to present these extraordinary literary events and help us keep our conference affordable and accessible. Please join me again in thanking all of our conference sponsors and partners and for their support and participation. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, before we start, I do need to do some brief housekeeping. Please keep your cell phones silent. Remember, there's no flash photography allowed during the presentation, and respect seats marked as reserved for attendees, VIPs, and accessibility needs. Please give the authors about 10 minutes or so after the presentation to get to the book signing table before approaching them to have your book signed. And lastly, we ask that you please be aware of your fellow attendees who may have disabilities and help AWP be more accessible. Specifically, if you see a barrier to accessibility, let us know by calling or texting our accessibility hotline, and the phone number is 240-269-6635. Please also be aware of those with invisible disabilities and do not question someone's use of an accommodation. Thank you, and now it's my great pleasure and honor to welcome Lauren Alleyne, who will introduce this fantastic event.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Lauren K. Alleyne, and I'm the Executive Director of the Furious Flower Poetry Center. We're pleased to present this evening's conversation with three dynamic poets, Malika Booker, Anastacia-Reneé, and Nikky Finney. Before we hear from these incredible women and poets, I want to tell you a little bit about Furious Flower Poetry Center. And I'm going to put on my glasses because, yes. In 2005, the Furious Flower Poetry Center was chartered at James Madison University, establishing the nation's first academic center dedicated to Black poetry. However, its history goes back more than a decade before the official charter. In 1994, Dr. Joanne Gabin convened a conference at JMU to honor her friend and mentor, Gwendolyn Brooks, the first Black woman poet to be awarded the Pulitzer Prize in Poetry. And I'm going to take a minute and privilege to shout out Dr. Joanne Gabin, who is in the room. The groundbreaking gathering was among the largest of its kind, drawing more than 30 acclaimed Black poets in conversation with each other, audiences in the hundreds eager to hear from Black poets and learn more about Black poetry. It was so nice, she did it twice. And 10 years later, in 2004, Dr. Gabin held a second successful conference, which was dedicated this time to Sonia Sanchez and Amiri Baraka. After this second conference, Dr. Gabin founded the center with a mission to celebrate Black poets, educate audiences about Black poetry, preserve the legacy of Black poetry and poets for future generations. Over the last almost 20 years, the center has facilitated readings, workshops, tributes, conferences, and publications with a commitment to nurture, promote, and pass on the rich and ongoing legacy of Black poetry. The third Fierce Flower Conference happened in 2014, this time dedicated to Rita Dove. And I know we are writers and poets, but the math is pretty easy on this one. 94, 04, 14, say it with me. Yes, the fourth Fierce Flower Conference happens this year, September 18th to 21st, and the conference honors Elizabeth Alexander and Kwame Dawes. The theme is Worlds of Black Poetry, and we just extended the call for proposals, so if you're just learning about it today, you have the opportunity still to submit papers, and registration will open in April if you just want to come be part of the gathering, of the community, of the convening. I also want to take a moment to say that as a Black Poetry Center, we stand in solidarity against injustice, terror, and all the violences that hate engenders. None of us are free until all of us are free. Black poets have known this. Black poets have spoken this. Black poets have lived this. And we know that all anti-racist, liberationist, and decolonial struggles are intertwined. We move always towards justice. And now, to turn to this afternoon's event. I'm so pleased to introduce these three incredible poets, dear friends of Fierce Flower and simply inspiring human beings in general. Malika Booker is a British Caribbean poet and co-founder of the poetry collective Malika's Poetry Kitchen. She was the inaugural poet in residence at the Royal Shakespeare Company and was elected a Royal Society of Literature Fellow in 2022. Booker received an award for outstanding contribution to poetry, and her poems Little Miracles and Libation won and were shortlisted for the Forward Prize for Best Single Poem in 2020 and 2023, respectively. Her poetry collection, Pepper Seed, published in 2013, was shortlisted for the O.C.M. Bocas Prize for Caribbean Literature and the Seamus Heaney Center Prize for First Full Collection. She's one of three poets featured in the third volume of the Penguin Modern Poets Anthology, alongside Sharon Olds and Warshawn-Sheree. Booker teaches creative writing at Manchester Metropolitan University. Anastacia-Reneé is an award-winning writer, educator, interdisciplinary artist, TEDx speaker, and podcaster. She's the author of several books, most recently Side Notes from the Archivist, and forthcoming Here in the Middle of Nowhere, both from HarperCollins Amistad, V, and Forget It. Her poetry and fiction have appeared in Prairie Schooner, Torch, Poetry Northwest, The Fight and the Fiddle, which is Fierce Flower's literary magazine, Ms. Magazine, and others. Anastacia-Reneé was former Seattle Civic Poet, Hugo House Poet in Residence, Artist Fellow, and Jack Straw Curator. They received fellowships and residencies from Cave Canem and Hedgebrook. Nikky Finney is the author of On Wings Made of Gauze, Rice, The World is Round, and Head Off and Split. Her new collection of poems, Love Child's Hotbed of Occasional Poetry, was released in 2020. Finney's work has attracted multiple prestigious awards, most famously the National Book Award for Poetry for her 2011 Head Off and Split. Finney is a chancellor of the American Academy of Poets and was recently inducted into the American Academy of Arts and Letters at the University of South Carolina. She holds the John H. Bennett Jr. Chair in Creative Writing and Southern Literature and a Carolina Distinguished Professorship. She's recently been appointed Executive Director of the newly launched Ernest A. Finney Jr. Cultural Arts Center in Columbia, a 21st century arts and cultural center named for her father. So these poets, let's give them a round of applause. You know, I just am going to say, I'm off script, I'm sorry. When we wanted to be a literary partner, we heard the parameters, like, oh, you gotta bring someone who can draw 1,000 people. And I said, who is the light that can draw 1,000 ships? Who are the lights? So I want to thank you for being lights. I want to thank you for being amazing poets, and I can't wait for us to hear your work. So we'll start with Malika, followed by Anastacia, followed by Nikky Finney.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so overwhelmed to be on stage with such phenomenal poets who I look up to. I'm going to be reading 2 long poems. The first one is entitled My Ghost in the Witness Stand. I've been doing a PhD. I handed in my thesis in December, but thank you. The poetry, it's a creative writing, so the poetry was creolizing the King James Bible. And so in here, we're going to have the Levite's wife or concubine or all the other words that she says to her. And we're going to start off with what I call a courtroom sonnet, where she interrogates the word persuades. And this part of Judges is one of the most brutal kind of assaults that's in the Bible that's committed against the woman. And so she speaks her own story, and she is situated in the Caribbean. So I've resituated everyone in the Caribbean. So this is an excerpt from a long poem. My Ghost in the Witness Stand, Judges 19 to 21. A Levite persuades his lawful wife to return to him. Objection. I object that his aim was to persuade me of anything. The man raided like law was his warrant. What right to raid the law like his warrant his right? The man persuaded, raided, marriage law his sanctity. Persuade, substitute dragged, hair clamped in palms. Persuade, substitute with a hand collar in neck. Persuades, barricade, breach law unlawful to my body. Persuades, his right, his might, my flight, ask why. Persuades, picture fist hammering my current body, fake to banker's smiles. Persuade, picture his smiles at wife with grilled teeth. Persuade, picture grip and ignored, glass pressed into skin. Persuades, picture body in a car trunk. Persuades, picture body thrown, carted over donkey back. Persuades, picture punishable death. 2, this donkey can't carry no damn load. This donkey can't carry no damn load. This donkey can't drag 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 no damn load. 3. And it came to pass, so this is called a sonnet coupling, and what it is it's interrogating the lines of the Bible. So I'll do this to indicate it's the Bible, and then the woman responds to the Bible. And it came to pass those days when him woo me like dew shine on glass blade. And it came to pass in those days when it was pastures green, not ripe to be swayed, and that there was a certain Levite who stayed instead ensnared. And there was a certain Levite who took to him that then wore no broke me up like untamed mare. And there was a certain Levite sojourning, say loitering, liming to whistle gal passing rum shop. That there was a certain Levite sojourning, label hornaman, to woo gal for fling down hilltop, who took to him a concubine out of say, took me to him as damned wife thereof. 4. They have a way he start eyeing up my body. Say he thicken me up like I's a rump. Say he thicken me up like I's rump, body to dissect, slaughter, quarter, and cut up. Body to dissect, slaughter, quarter, and cut up. I was parade each day on his auction block. My parades is a pirouette, toes bloody on wood block. It's the way he watched me make I had was to run. It's the way he fist licked me make I had was to run. 1 foot in front of the other, my skin put foot. 1 foot in front of the other, my black skin put foot. 'Cause in his words, I was bird to pluck, pluck, pluck. 5. Like yard fowl I run back to my papa house. But his welcome was rancid as spoiled coconut water. What make you come run back home, little gal? Over and over like stuck record. When he kick her dog down concrete steps. When he crushed body, stained blood sheets each morning's bloom. But was not Papa's bosom a rock and hard, hard chest? His vile viper tongue, his skettle, his salop. Said, girl, man have right to fling lash in a wayward woman ass. Finger pointed to St. James scripture like judge, verdict, then fist hammered wood. Yet I know in these island villages where man's shadow have weight heavy so, is 1 step away from blood, hot with rum to raising cutlass over woman prone body. So I haul up my skirt, and just run. Thank you. Thank you. The second poem is called Her Silent Wake. We were commissioned to write about a story that's been wiped from history, and it's the amount of Caribbean men and soldiers who served in the First World War. And this poem is about Herbert Morris. He was a Jamaican young man who was court-martialed and killed at 17 years old. What I like to do is look in the archives, but try and write the woman's body back into the archives. And I wondered what his mom felt like when she got the news. There was a lot of anger writing this because every year in England you see Poppy Day where they celebrate and commemorate the people who served in World War I, and it's a whitewashed event. So to find these untold stories, all of us poets were discovering it for the first time. So I wanted in this poem, I wanted the anger and the rage to be inhabited by the woman's voice. So I'm just going to finish with this poem, Her Silent Wake. The stillness is eerie, cloudy like stagnant water. John crows pick her flesh, the blood white with sorrow, tiny exhalations, in, out, the only sign of life. She's a black statue in a whitewashed wooden chair, a dilapidated board house, sitting still till dusk spreads her silk petticoat across the sagging sky, and bats swarm into the evening's canvas, her boy Pickney Herbert dead. 2, I heard rumors, murmurs, heard Ophelia, get up, smelled smelling salts, lima call. I heard priest prayers. My body was quarry stone. My world had turned gray. The motherland had called our sons to her bosom. Come, sons, come, fight for your motherland, she said. And then that bitch pressed her callous feet onto our boys' backs till spines cracked, then grind those broken bones into pieces and did not send their crumbs back. What mother does not want the crumpled dust of her son instead of nothing? 3, him dead. I rend my red cotton dress, beat breast body, sword, coarse rice sack dresses that grate skin raw, rubbed ashes from rage into sobbing skin. Unlike Jacob, my son is dead. Oh son, who bade your carcass down there foreign? Who fling white rum on the ground? Son, I have no language for this loss. Him dead, I turn over the mattress, line up the slippers and one dress shoe, rearrange the furniture, and find I care not for terms like deserter or coward. You are my son. What title can belittle my son? Oh, son, who pelt down dominoes down there foreign? Who keep vigil over your body all night? Son, I have no language for this loss. Him dead, I yank out my cane rose, tear hair up savage tugs, and pulls until it turned matted bush, a hive for bees, fat succulent one, ruled by a king named George. The day I whispered your death news to the bees, I broke their king's back. Oh son, who stopped their clocks down there foreign? Who sings Sankey and reads scripture? Son, I have no language for this loss. Him dead, I covered the mirrors, sipped cocoa tea, watching breadfruit tree where your navel string is buried, and feel to take an axe and chop, chop, chop when I think about how they take you whole and send you back an inked name on paper. 4. They say when she heard, she fell into a trance, that she holler, and the next day she went into the front of the house with a shovel and dig into the earth till her hands looked like raw meat and blood dripped from that handle. And when she'd made a row of beds, how she bent her back and crawled in the dirt, pushing in the seeds in that punishing sun, howling her son Herbert's name like a psalm, like a hymn, like scripture. It would be said that in the absence of a body, she had to bury something. How she'd rather he'd returned home crippled or crazy, like some of the soldiers deposited back like sour fruit, limbs missing or muttering to themselves or flinging their bodies down on the ground at any loud noise, blocking up the city like vagrants, like the refuge that England refused. How she'd seen there was no glory to be had, so prepared herself. Was it not she who had told him, go, sign up for king and country, for motherland, for glory, proud of her soldier's son, knowing his inside was soft like egg, but determined for him to return, but not like this, news on a paper, scratching on a telegram, visit to her door, how guilt mixed up with sorrow, and now she's making him a garden of flowers, a monument, a way of burying something into this island's earth. 5. In this small place, your worth as a woman is measured by the number of sons you produce. Each day is long now, and I cook up pots of empty. The main ingredient is lost with a dash of woe. It's scent foul, stagnant, and cloudy. My only boy child is dead, young still in his chin. That bitch of a stepmother England built a forest of bones for rats to feast on succulent black men. The scent of her actions rancid as hell, and now I'm worthless. My grief is a carcass swinging on a butcher's hook, stabbed into the back of my neck. My neighbor's sympathy simply slices each pound of flesh. Thank you.
Hello, y'all. I'm reading new work from a new book here in the middle of nowhere, an excerpt. And what you need to know is this is the beginning of the book where God is welcoming in visitors to visit the land. And the second thing you need to know that in this book, God is a Black woman. House, relating to the place where one lives, a lakay, a crib, bungalow, shanty, box, ile, shotgun, quarters, apartment, room, covenstead, rectory, flat, mansion, dwelling, salt box, residence, nest, house mother, house father, home of an animal who returns by instinct to its territory after leaving it. You want to know if you visitors can go inside here? Yes, if you plan to stay. Yes, here at my tree, rib cages and hip bones, thickets of hair and shoelaces, tachycardia and phantom limbs, bridesmaids, eggshells and hysterectomies, kisses, all kinds, sometimes blowing kisses at me, at the ground, at friends, disappearing selfies at my tree, Afropod selves and aversions of selves, splintering selves and centering selves. I don't head count, but if I did, I'd say maybe a quarter till infinity and still coming. I love black shimmering holograms projected on my bark, concentric ridges of DNA all around. I tell them through found objects and sudden wind gusts to keep it pushing, because sometimes life is both flecks of horror and delight. But some of them are hard-headed and don't want to hear. Some of them can't help it because they suffer with the nausea of imposter syndrome and migraines of spiritual impediments, crucifixes passed down to ward off themselves, their telepathy, their knowing, their dreaming, their a hurricane of lost languages, spinning tongues like inclement weather. Some sigh, some scream, some sing, some spit, some slay at my root. Monsters, vampires, mortals, mermaids, citizens, priestesses, griots, witches, babies, animals, lovers, Bloody Marys, time jumpers, creatures, visitors. Yeah, you here in this place. Crooked metropolitan roads, plasma-colored dirt roads, marble roads, suburban pavement, and volcanic soil here in this place do not converge easy peasy. It's everything, it's nothing. Townspeople pretzel their bodies and bingo horror stories with the dead while they throw salt and shade. Say things like, but is your vampire bartender better at spades than my friend who gets her hair braided at the Coven Salon in Lucille No. 3's parish? Or, can I put my second soul on layaway and get a neighborhood discount for the way this human body fades to a morphine drip? There are roads which do not middle, only begin and end. Hidden back roads, gravel holy in syncretism and plush lawns, and citizens trip over the smallest of things, and they know good and well the world above is a bigger dress to him. And there are things no one body can decipher. There are French braided subdivisions and cornrowed patterns and wide city blocks of lavender, lime green, and peach shotgun houses, which appear closer in a rearview mirror. Each one with its own labyrinth and Lucille's skeleton key. This is a multi-dimensional place, inside a town, inside a city, inside a state. Humans suck on grudges like peppermint candy. When will they learn? No one wants a bloated stomach of floating regrets and red pepper flakes. No one wants to repetitively stitch up joy's niggling tear. There are townspeople who try to close read each other as jigsaw puzzles. It doesn't work, like skating on sand, like sopping up gravy with your right hand drenched instead of using a biscuit. Can you, visitors, enter now? Yeah. This town is a place full of love beneath a, next to a, under a. Pregnant paradise, all doctored with darkness and divine. All the babies bending up towards the motherboard, all the dead skin shed, a cover for everyone's growth, and get down to it. This town will keep you here. You want to know where here is on the map? Nowhere. Everywhere. This place. Thank you.
Black people who were free thinking and free moving and 8 times greater in number were the greatest threat to South Carolina in 1740. The outlandish maroons of South Carolina. 97 days on ships named for friendship and Jesus and African snow. Hundreds of the thousands chained to the wooden ribs of the boats times 137 years. When Sullivan's Island finally came into view, there were some who had seen enough. The forced feeding, dysentery, the lightning pop of the cat o' nine tails, the young girls entered and exited like saloon doors, the fevered sharks edging the waves. 97 days times 137 years chained sideways on ships named for Jesus and friendship and African snow, soaked in human filth. Once on their feet, they threw their self-determined eyes out like fishing nets, the river oaks with their mossy hair beckoning. They made their way to the wilderness before anything more could happen. The interminable swamps, impenetrable canebrakes, inaccessible Everglades, the great southern wilds so oddly perfect. The decision to run to the wilderness, fueled by the resolve to never be owned ever by anyone. The wanted posters called them bandits and outlandish Negroes. The woods was full of them. They met up in the wilderness, hid in the hinterlands, deep in the cane and the blackberry, undiscovered but hunted, had children, built settlements, kept watch. When they heard the pounding of the dogs, they buried themselves deeper in dugouts next to the fox, holding their sour breath in like pearl divers. They secreted themselves into the backland during the sunlight, venturing out and going abroad only when starlight lit the camp. Rather than be enslaved, they turned into owls. The great dismal swamps named them after flowers that only open to the moon. They stared up at Venus until Jupiter appeared, then threw back their heads to sketch the Big Dipper. Grew herbs, used barks and roots for medicine, collected black moss and seagrass for beds. Ingenious and dangerous. Invented a freedom made of red cedar and blackberry vines, defied legislative black codes, changed the narrative. America had decided what a black man was, what a black woman was not, broke the law of what a black child had to produce. The insatiable hunger for Carolina gold. The old people remember leaving whatever they had at the end of their cotton-picking day at the edge of the forest just for them. The woods was full of them. The outlandish, inventive, indigo-skinned maroons of South Carolina, confident, sufficient to the self, prone to stealing pigs, day-old calves from the big house in order to eat. Their lives stolen, but it remained theirs to live. Outlandish how they refused to wait for Plessy versus Ferguson, or Brown v. Board of Education, or Malcolm, or Martin, or Mary McLeod Bethune. American justice was slowpoke, improbable, undreamable. In the wild, there was breaking news always, and recurring dreams always of Stono. Free-minded, crafty, These outlandish Negroes sat circled up, free, under the stars, remembering the story of the beginning of the world, how it all began on the back of a turtle. The woods was full of them. They entered the forest to live, be companion to the cypress, the sweet gum, the great live oak, trusted the sacredness of sycamore trees more than iron hands who thought nothing of slicing off an ear, peeling back an Achilles, as long as it kept others from desiring the light of outlandishness. Inside the song of the ivory-billed woodpecker, curled about the soft skin of the crepe myrtle, draped easy alongside the firefly in bouquets of yellow jasmine, praying, whispering to their tree gods, their hands opening, closing to the rain. These ones invented how to steal away. Their outlandish spider houses on stilts, high, lonesome, secret places of great human invention, complete with high and low tide, complete with listening out and loving in when and where they decided to love, permissionless in solidarity with the woodpecker. They kept no time, grew long and lavender and liquid, and kept the secrets of other Black people. Black skin is an accelerant. Malcolm Gladwell. On the good ship, Elijah McClain. In shiatsu, the high seas of pressure points woo him. How touch restores, relieves, cures, resets the knee. A child who sometimes lived in cars, taught himself to play guitar, discovered bioluminescence, unearthing a tender aptitude for the mining of his own light. At the Aurora Hotel where he lived with his family, he forecasted his dream board to his mother. Work on a cruise ship, give free massage, heal the world. While waiting for his figment freighter, Elijah played first violin to abandoned cats and shelters, silky moire strings fracturing their leonine loneliness. 10 p.m., just before they contort him into twin carotids, his brother dreams of iced tea. A young man with light aptitude has no fear of moving through the blueberry leaves of night. Elijah ups his ski masks, earphones, sea lion aura. He is back inside his wetsuit. The cats back at the shelter glance towards the door for the man with the long gliding stick who curtsies to them before playing for them. He dives into his starlight, swimming beyond his lungs, his farsightedness, his anemia frightened off. He is salt, warm, piquant, his blood thicker, the blue-green algae of his mind perfuming his hybrid lungs. Krill and seaweed inhaled, mixing with the microfibers around his bashful mouth. The red-ringed octopus that swims with him whenever he ventures out this late lightly touches Elijah's face with the tip of his fifth arm. His terrestrial anxiety lifts as he descends to his mud-bottom land. But a hunter-gatherer, safely behind the safety glass of his window, is already on the phone turning Elijah in, reporting a sea monster in black ski mask walking by, his 10 arms waving sketchy in the night air. Elijah McClain has no man-made weapons, nothing but his dark sea urchin skin, soft, silvery scales, two shimmering nocturnal eyes, a shark-skinned boy cooing to himself, headed back to the Aurora Hotel after scoring his brother's iced tea. Elijah is now his own deep. The first one yells for him to stop. His black boy gills tingle with his endangeredness. The sea is his authority. He keeps his arms moving. His skinny legs send one final memo up to the mouth of his ski mask. Once upon a time, 10 million years before, feet were fins. Behind the mask, Elijah smiles into a long, hanging stalactite of prehistoric memory. The hunter-gatherers have surrounded him now. His black skin beneath his black mask is their favorite red meat. Beating their chests, their body cameras disappear into ancient fjords. These HGs know nothing of the sea from whence they came. Rock-hard terrestrials needing their pressure points attended to topple him. It's 5 against 1 when the whale hook is force-fed into his arm. Elijah's glittering seahorse veins are hosed down. 1963, Birmingham, a Niagara Falls of ketamine. The treble clef tattoo on Elijah's right shoulder bugles the alarm. A netting of squid ink lassos out to protect his gentle collagen carapace. Elijah's heart is up in arms. His lungs and liver are foaming at the mouth. In utter disbelief, the great inaccuracy, the intentional historical disregard, the human they have coupled with for 23 years, his royal kindness, his dream of free massage for all now gasping for breath. Elijah enters the slippery river rocks of semi-unconsciousness. His toes wiggle for nitrogen, bouncing against the boulders of the white waters of the Colorado River. His heart signs for him to push his voice up through his gurgling organ pipes. I am an introvert, he says. Please, respect the boundaries. Please, he sets forth. I'm just different. That's all he proffers. Leave me alone, he insists. I have no gun. I intend to take my powers back. I have a right to where I'm going. I'm so sorry. The kindest man on earth apologizes, unable to control his spewing. Everything they have gorged him with now, hurtling through the August air. 2. One day, on the good ship Elijah McClain, after checking into our deep sea cabins, black ski masks handed out with tangerine life preservers, we will find ourselves on deck, bowing, curtsying to each other. At first, it will all feel so silly. The gravitational surrender of our upper bodies and knees to the maritime mystery of someone we do not know, just to be sure and say before the day is done, I watched your glass octopus dancing down the dark, wet street last night. And I am no longer afraid for you to know how shamelessly your sonata for Manx and Maine Coon turned me inside out.
Can you all hear me? Okay, great. So this is where we get to talk. And I've prepared questions. I have so many questions. That was just an entrancing reading. But I want to start off with what we planned. I want to talk to all of you about the role of place in your poetry and in your writing. All of your work feels so grounded in speaking to or speaking from specific places, the Caribbean, the American South, the US in particular. We even are in places of your own invention. So, Anastasia, we'll start with you. You're from this place. Kick us off.
Yeah. When I think about place, for me, I always get nostalgic. I think about little me, which happened to have been born here in Kansas City, Missouri. And I think about snapshots, what it looks like when you're a child. You don't realize so much about the big world. Everything is a frame. A shot here, a memory there, a smell here. And then becoming an adult, I've moved around a lot, but there is something still about little A that looks at life in frames. Look at the way that tree is. Oh, this oak tree reminds me of a tree that I saw in New Orleans. Or this recipe, this mac and cheese recipe is not as good as such and such's recipe, but it sure does taste like the time I was in blah, blah, blah. So for me, all the places do start to overlap and converge into one big place, which brought me to writing the new book. And the question of home for me, I am still searching. Is home inside? Is home wherever you feel safe? Is home wherever other people make you feel safe? So for me, I have to distinguish between place and home. And I'm still working on that.
Thank you. Jump in. Play.
So I feel as if I belong to all these places and yet don't belong to any of them. And it's just because of diasporic travel. So I was born in Britain in the 70s, but it was so racist. My dad decided to go back to Guyana, and my mom, who's Grenadian, went with him into Guyana. So my formative years until 11 was in Guyana. And then I went back to Britain. My family stayed in Guyana, and then my mother moved to Grenada. And then my mother got a job and moved with my brothers to Brooklyn. So my kind of sense of holidays have been in all these places of home, all these Caribbean places of home. So Brixton in London, Brooklyn. I just thought Brooklyn was a Caribbean place when I was small. Because I would land in,
right?
I would get to Brooklyn and I'd just see all the Guyanese and all the Grenadians and all these, and I just thought that was it. And so there's something about the Caribbean and the diaspora that shaped my work. And there's something intrinsic about looking at women in the Caribbean and feeling as if there was an absence. As I grew up, in the 70s and the 80s, you got a resurgence of a lot of Black women writers, from Olive Senior to Lorna Goodison. But I feel I'm writing into that tradition, and I feel that
that sense of home again, and place and memory. So it feels like my imaginative memory is a Caribbean memory, although I've lived in Britain more than I've lived in the Caribbean.
Oh. Nikki took us all kinds of places.
I have had, one of the blessings in my life is to have had teachers who sent me on a hunt for something. And one of those teachers, my 10th grade teacher, would walk down the hall with a Webster's 50-pound dictionary under her arm. And she would see me sitting in the hall at lunchtime, and she would drop down and point a word out to me. And one of those words was geography, which I thought just meant land, or the things that were on the land. And that's exactly what it means, but it also includes the people on the land. But that's not in our world, because we live in this 18 words or less, let's get to the point in 5 seconds less. We don't look at the root of the word. And when you look at the root of the word, it always has the people on the land. And so when I understood that, I began to claim South Carolina in a way I didn't want to claim it as a black girl who grew up there with all the horrendous things that I had witnessed and seen and felt. And I was like, oh, this is our land. This is our place. But we don't get that. You don't get that in the stereotypes. You don't get that in the news reels. You don't get that in the horror things that are said. You just get those things. So land, geography, place, critical to everything. I want the details of that. I'll never forget, Lorna Goodison was a poet from Jamaica. This was 30 years ago probably, at Kentucky. She said that she could not take a full-time job in this country because if she left Jamaica, you know, like really left, she would forget what the bougainvillea smelled like. She would forget the names of the flowers around her grandmother's house. She would forget the names of the mint and the herbs that her mother had. You know, because when you move and you're not in that place where your childhood was first shaped, you move on to the new flower, right? And I never forgot how clear she was about that. And when she writes her stories and writes her poems, you always see those flowers. You always, so I can write a magnolia flower. You know, that's not just for other people, right? Why can't a black girl write a magnolia flower poem? So it was full permission, these people who popped into my life for a moment, who clearly wanted to drop seed in me about who I was and what I would write about.
Wow, thank you. So I want to move on to this question of archives. You know, at Fierce Flower, we're interested in archives. Preservation is part of the mission, and all of your work, you know, engages in some way with some manifestation of archives, whether it's tangible artifact, oral history, imagined or lost records. Like, I want to hear your thoughts on your relationship to archive as poets. Like, Nikki, will you kick us off on?
You know, this word archive is kind of popular now.
Yep,
you
yep.
know, everybody's talking about archive. I think Kaveh Khanum has tomorrow morning there's a panel with 5 amazing poets who are talking about the images, the photographs, right, in archives. And so it's popular, but it's personal for me. My mother, who turned 90 on November 10, 2 months ago, when I was a little girl, I used to watch her stack the Jet magazines, the Ebony magazines, the Crisis magazines, the Black World magazines, all neatly on the table in front of us. We had to read them, we had to know what was in them, and then she took scissors to them. And she made albums of black heroes. what is she doing? Why does she, 3 months after Jet, we've read it and we've been tested on it, she'll cut it up and put it into her oversized picture book, labeled. When I went to college, when I left home, my mother took those archival, historical, Black history. Do you know who Wilma Rudolph is? Do you know who Charles White? What? Give me some names of his art. I was like, what? She never let me forget that it would not be somebody else who would treasure my culture. Never. She never let me stumble in that regard. So I started keeping my own files. When I got my report cards from the first grade. Nikky talks too much. She needs to, I'm like, wow. We didn't have 8mm pictures, but in my archives of notes about me and my life, I find out who I was and find out how I got to be who I am. So I wasn't saving this to share with the world initially. But eventually I said, there's some little Black and brown girls who need to see this, who need to understand this is something. And when Love Child came out, I got so many notes from people. There was a young Black woman who was in graduate school who said, oh my God, my father, who was a janitor in a building, who couldn't come and visit me at school when I was getting, my PhD, used to leave notes on a greasy cheeseburger bag on my door. And I threw those notes away. She was talking about the notes that I had from my father in his handwriting. And she said, I wish I had saved them. I said, you did. You may not have the paper, but you have the memory. And you know he loved you because he was putting his handwriting on that little greasy cheeseburger and saying, keep going, baby, you'll get that degree one day. So a book like that, and hopefully this focusing on archival material, moves like a ripple in a pond.
Archives.
So when I was living in Brixton, when I came home from school, my aunt would say, when you shut the door, you're in Grenada now. So you'd come in and, sometimes I'd say, you know what I mean? Or, and she'd be like, why are you speaking like that? You're in Grenada, right? And there were times when she wouldn't put on the television, and she would just sit down and tell us stories about Grenada. I hadn't been to Grenada, but she told me about my grandfather, my grandmother, the land, the food, and so much stories about my mother, So, and she was kind of like, I suppose, what you would call the oral historian. And she made this so alive for me. And I was an avid reader. I would read 12 books a week at school. I'd go to the library and just get 12 books. They just knew me. They'd be like, oh, here she comes again. But none of these books had the stories that my aunt told me. And so I think for me, I think I'm obsessed with that. I'm obsessed with trying to unlock these stories, unlock these people. I remember for years trying to write these women into my book and realizing that I needed to read Toni Morrison to understand how to do them, how to capture these women I grew up with who chase men with cutlasses and machetes, and how do I get out of the workshop space where people say, oh, that's so unbelievable, that's so huge. And so if people like Toni Morrison wasn't doing archival stuff and wasn't writing, I wouldn't be able to write. I wouldn't have the tools to write. If Walcott wasn't excavating myths and transforming them, I wouldn't have the way to do that. So for me, even working with the Bible is working with archival stuff. I'm fascinated by the fact that this book is in every Caribbean household, and the proverbs and the word and the language overflow. And what is our relationship to it? And what about if we went into the book? So I think I'm always drawn by fascination, but informed by my aunt's oral testimonies and oral history. And when I went to Grenada, I knew everything. I knew our street. I knew the house. I knew what was there. I knew the oil down. I knew all of that. Having a Guyanese upbringing, I knew all of that because she evoked that when she shut the house and we were in Grenada.
I was a nosy child. I was the youngest, when the first grandbaby, kinda, and I didn't have any cousins, and so I was always, as the grown people say, in grown folks' business. And then I learned if I was just quiet, they would let me be in their business. So then I would just listen to all the business. And I would take notes in my head, like, oh, I don't know what this word means, but I know they use this word during this time. They use this word during this time for this kind of energy. Ooh, oh, so eating together is like a ritual, it's a tradition. I was always in my head, always taking notes. And that, coupled with having a mom who was a medical librarian and growing up with textbooks and references, was just normal for me. I wanted to read the dictionary. And I feel like this idea of trying to, again, capture life, even as a little person, journaling, writing, taking notes, making maps, making my own maps. This is the map of my grandparents. Who's this gonna be for? No one. But I just wanted to do that. I'm a lister. I'm the corny person that says, let me take your picture. I don't wanna post it on social media. I just wanna hold it close for me. And so I think as an adult, bridging the capture it, along with thinking of longevity, the people after me. It never even occurred to me until later on in life that, wow, these notes, these observations, these secret, sacred pictures could be very useful for the people after me. So somewhere there was a turn between I'm doing this, collecting, to like, no, this is historical, this is sacred, this is very important. It changed in my heart to like, oh, I'm archiving, isn't that cute? I'm not even a librarian. To know I am the archivist. I am holding this is important.
Well, I love, and I'm going off script a little bit, but the archive is self-making, right? Again, the notion and the way we talk about them so much is, getting the history or making for the future. But what I'm hearing from all of you is the way in which archive is also about, creating the self. Am I right? Am I on to something there a little bit, right? This notion of self-making. So self, but then we're also often with you guys thinking about community. All of you are so involved in community work, and so identity and self is also part of something larger that you've already started to reference. So talk to me about, the work, how the work serves, speaks to, or otherwise engages with the communities you're a part of. Malika, I'm thinking of the Poetry Kitchen that you started. And yeah, so you start us off.
So, so I have this thing, growing up, you kept hearing a family who eats together stays together. And anytime, for me, I think food is really important, and eating and breaking bread and having conversation with people. So we had a real deficit in England. There was a report done that showed that less than 1% of black poets were being published. We had a kind of interjection with Kwame Dawes, who came and taught Afro Style School, which I was a part of, and really enabled a lot of us to grow and develop as writers. And then he left, and I was sitting with my friend Roger Robinson, And I was saying, oh, we should do this. Other people should have access to this. And Roger is Trini, like you, Trinidadian, who is just like, let me do it. And I said, okay, what are we gonna do? And he said, we're gonna just invite people to the house and just around the table, just look at craft and development. People who are marginalized, who have no spaces. And so I said, okay, when are we gonna start? He's like, next week. And so the next week it was me, Roger, and one writer. It was very intense, you know? And then the week after it was 10 people, and I thought they were just gonna come every month, but these fools came every week. So I don't know if you know, women in here, on Thursday night, I had to clean. Like, I had to clean because they came. And so it grew from there, and it became a space where we could talk about writing, where we could feedback writing, where we could bring anything we learned back into the space. Religiously for years, on a Friday night, it was Malika's Poetry Kitchen. It was co-run with Roger, and then Jacob Sam-LaRose co-ran it with us. And it was in that vein and then it became, I realized that you can't write on your own, and you can't do anything on your own. And you need these conversations, you need to break bread together. And in writing, you can break bread, and that's at the heart of everything. I didn't realize that they would keep it up for 20 years. I didn't realize that so much people would come out of it, and I didn't realize that it would grow where it is. All I wanted was the camaraderie and the craft and the growing. And I think community is very important to me. And building community, which is why I wanted to be in CC, and which is why I'm so happy when I come over and see, my brothers and sisters over here, and just reconnect and hug and talk writing and stuff like that. I think it's really important for us as writers across the diaspora to also build community and not think I'm a British writer or I'm an African American writer, but have conversations across the diaspora and the continent with each other.
Community.
I think it's important to have overlapping communities and to realize not one community can serve all your purposes, which means you might have 10 communities, and they might be small, and then one community might be really huge. I've been exploring what I need. That's why the pause, what I need, because it has changed, but what I want to give hasn't changed. So I'm always wanting to give. Is it food? Should we cook together? Does somebody need help writing? Are we just gonna talk? I just think the idea of community coming together to talk, to do nothing, sometimes sit in silence. It's very hard. You have that friend where you can just sit in silence, and that's okay. So I think it's really important to have multiple kinds of communities. And I also think it's important to write about community. There have been times in my life where maybe I didn't get to experience a kind of community, but at least I could read about it. I could dream about it. I could imagine what it might feel like, and then I can go out and create that. I think about community as a different way to show your love languages. In your community, maybe your love language is cooking, and that could be your thing. I feel like we can all rise in community. I get emotional thinking about it, I'm sorry.
No.
So, especially when you feel isolated sometimes,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm not going to do the long answer. The short answer is Toni Cade Bambara opened her house to anyone in Atlanta who wanted to write. So nurses, Spelman students, bus drivers, anybody who had a poem came into that room. I didn't go on to get a MFA. My MFA was pursued at the feet of Toni Cade Bambara, who taught me every time I sat at her feet, if you're not writing for the community, then you're not writing. full stop. We were walking down the street one day. Bus driver gets off the bus, says, "Miss, I saw you in the paper last week, and I thought he was going to ask for Tony Cade's signature," right? He said, "My wife and I want to buy a house, but we don't fill out forms so good. Can you help us?" In that moment, I understood what it meant to be a writer in a community.
Ooh,
I just got to say one more thing.
say all the things.
30 years, right? Furious Flower. This poet right here, on stage, just right now, I have my little words. I see Lucille Clifton walk in the room. I never seen Lucille Clifton before. I'm going to tear this up. Whatever I'm about to say, I don't want to say it anymore. But I've read it. And she walks up to me after. And she said, "You're a poet." I have been anointed at Furious Flower 2014 by Lucille Clifton. That's community. That's the very definition that Joanne Gabin worked for the last decades. Doesn't get headline news, all of that, right? When we used to work in isolation, and now we have, a few organizations that we can go and get that from. And that's priceless. That's precious.
Thank you. Y'all are poets.
Do I have questions? Are you going to do questions?
We're on to questions. Can we do we have time for our final poems?
One more piece.
Final poems?
Okay. I was so in the conversation, I didn't understand what was happening. I was all in anointment. I was like, why are you looking at me? See, I haven't got my glasses. I can't even. I'm like anointed. Oh my God. Okay. So I'm going to finish this piece. It's the Virgin Mary confesses to her mother. In Sunday school in Guyana, I always wondered, being Caribbean, how did Mary, if her mother was Caribbean, how would she tell her mother she's pregnant, but it's not her boyfriend's baby? And what would her mother do? So this is called the Virgin Mary confesses to her mother. The mother stood up and banged her fist onto the tabletop. Plates leapt up, crashed a crack. Teapot spilled brown tea. Mary leapt back to avoid the mother's foot lounging towards her in anger till it kicked the table foot, vexed to break her too. Something splintered that morning. The bare-faced cheek of her child sitting here with big belly, this daughter who had been her sunrise. Her shoe possessed her, and her hand leapt over the table to clench Mary's shirt collar, yank her over the table. She wanted to maim the baby out of that belly. That mother could not hear, could not bear, could just hear. That mother could just hear Miss Lee's voice bad-mouthing she and her child talking this business to death. Every time she said, "Not Joseph's child." Each time she uttered virgin, "Not Joseph's child." Each time she uttered virgin, "Not Joseph's child," the mother would rage, "Whose is it?" Each, "No, nobody's." Each time she refused to say, the mother's hand hard slapped her cheeks till it swelled in retaliation.
This piece, after hearing Nikki Giovanni say something like in her final days she wants to go to Mars. If all the black women are going to Mars, I want to sit with all the women I love. I want a black woman to call out on speaker, "Hey sis, welcome to your flight. We got all the baddest bitches flying to your destination today." And then some other black woman jump in and say, "Greetings, my brilliant and wise and beautiful sisters, and welcome to your flight, because it's your time, because you're worthy, because you have always been worthy. We are so thrilled to fly you to the motherland of Mars." Ashe. And then I want some other black woman to jump on the flight mic and say, "Buckle up, safety first. We got peach cobbler and mac and cheese on the flight." And we all say, "Please and thank you." And you know the elders are sitting in the first class, and y'all can take turns washing their feet or getting them any damn thing they want. Amen, okay, Ashe? I want the Soul Train line to begin and end on the flight. I want any woman I wronged or who wronged me to appear in the same row, and we clear it up in 5 minutes, and we're being asked what kind of stone we want to exchange to each other. I want every woman to have her time with a healing therapist and a doctor, and to have emotional ease in every medical procedure she needs on the way to Mars. I want my highest self and my lowest self and my kid self and my elder self to self-actualize like a choir and a prayer and a cackle. I want Mars herself to send us all a message through the sun-baked clouds, expressing how excited she is to hold us in her womb again. And we fly, and we good, and we gone.
The other thing about archive material is, you know, we're living beings and we say things, right? But when we go to the next plane, sometimes we leave those papers behind, and a nosy poet goes through those things and finds something that she needs to know. Hotbed 77. Claire calls. I don't even wait to say hello. I launch into what I have just discovered at the Brooklyn Museum. 2 of Lorraine Hansberry's pallbearers were her former lovers. From 600 miles away, I can hear her almost drop the phone. What did you say? I say it again. She makes me say it twice more. We sit there holding the phone, saying nothing, thinking about the power of this scene in 1965. The power of one woman loving another woman is power enough. Add the power of 2 different lovers from 2 different moments in her life, standing up together at the end of her life when it was such a great taboo to love another woman in order to take her body on up the road as far as they could. The phone is quiet for a long while. Then Claire asks me, "Do you think Lorraine Hansberry left instructions for this?" I don't know, Claire. Do you think there is a photo of all 3 of them? I don't know, Claire. Suddenly, there is a thick, milky silence between us that neither wishes to break. We want to hold ourselves in the thickness of the thought. I know without asking that we are both wondering who will stand and pallbear us. Who will carry us to our end?
Y'all keep it going for these incredible poets. Thank you so much for joining us. As a reminder, if you want to learn more about Furious Flower, the conference, the center, we're at booth 1532. Come to our panel tomorrow celebrating 30 years of Furious Flower. We have a reception at the Black Archives of Mid-America right after this, starting at 5 o'clock, and you can always find us online. I want to thank AWP for our first-time literary partnership opportunity with them, and I just, again, thank you all for being here.